Hey guys, I'm Ethan Moore from Stockman Supply, and this right here is the Flatmaster Drum Sander. But what a lot of you guys might not know is this was nearly called the Rip-Off Sander. When my dad designed this thing, he really wanted to call it the Rip-Off Sander. He thought it was pretty clever because the sandpaper just rips off. And we used to demo, or he used to demo this at woodworking shows in the really early days of him designing it. And when he'd ripped that off, it was really kind of an eye catcher. A lot of people noticed it, and changing the sandpaper on this drum sander is so easy compared to the sanders that were out at the time, traditional drum sanders with the clips. So people loved the fact that it was on Velcro. Now my mom didn't like the idea of the rip-off sander. She thought it sounded kind of negative, so they ended up settling on the Velcro drum sander. This is one of our earlier pieces of literature here. This is from 2001, actually in July. So the Velcro drum sander, so we actually buy the Velcro that's on the sander from Velcro. Now, eventually Velcro realized we were calling it the Velcro drum sander and didn't love the idea because that was their copyrighted name. So it ended up morphing into the V drum sander, and the V stands for Velcro. So anyway, that's kind of where it got its name. But the Velcro was really the thing. The ease of changing the sandpaper was what my dad wanted to highlight with the rip-off sander. Now with that Velcro, a couple other really neat features or neat things happened that my dad didn't even realize right away. But you got a hook and a loop with the Velcro. So when this drum spins, that sandpaper actually lifts up a little bit with centrifugal force. So you've always got an air gap between the drum and the sandpaper. So when you have an air gap between your drum and your sandpaper, when I'm sanding things like this with the varnish on it, I'm not going to make that hot. So I'm not going to melt the varnish. If I'm sanding pine, I'm not going to make the sap in the wood warm. So it doesn't really have a tendency to load the sandpaper at all here. I'll show you that right now. All right, let's sand this piece here. So this is a 80 grit I have on the drum right now. So it's one pass. There's two. But even after sanding through that varnish and that finish, there's no loading at all in the sandpaper, which is pretty unique for a sander. And that really becomes handy when you're doing stuff like this. This is just a epoxy scrap here, a little bit of walnut mixed with epoxy. But cutting boards and things like this are very difficult to sand on a drum sander because they will often load up the paper, especially on the finer grits, and cause burning and things like that. But with this drum sander, the Flatmaster here, it's a non-issue. Again, you can sand right through that kind of stuff with no loading. And the other really neat thing is, because you're sanding with such little heat, normally fine grits on any sander can be difficult to keep from loading up and to keep from burning. Where with this sander, this is a 220 grit, I can sand, or I can use nearly as fine a sandpaper as I want without any of those worries. So I could throw a 220 grit on there, and because of that Velcro, very easy to change the paper. Just like that. And if I have a cutting board, or even back to this varnished board that I haven't totally sanded, if I want to sand it even with my fine piece of sandpaper, it's not a problem. So with that 220 grit, I'm removing very little material from my piece, only 2/1000ths of an inch, because that's actually the size of the grain of sand that's on that paper. So the other neat thing that happens because of this Velcro and because we don't move the drum is to change the depth of cut is just by changing the paper. So if I want to get a increased depth of cut, I don't raise the drum. What I do, I just put a coarser grit on there. So if I go back to my 80 grit, rather than removing about 2 thou, this removes more like 15 thou. So really, it's kind of a neat sander, a neat design. It was nearly called the rip-off sander. What do you guys think, though? Would you have preferred it called the rip-off sander? Do you think that's a good idea? Or does that sound too negative, as my mom said? Let me know your thoughts. If anybody else has any questions, you can email me at info@stockmansupply.com or just comment on the video. Thanks for watching.
Ethan?
Yeah.
Can you humor me for 1 second?
Oh, you want to see this picture?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second here.
I think other people might be interested in it.
This is an early catalog. So this is from 2003. But if you look, oh, it's not on the back here. It must be on the other book. 1 second, I'll go grab it. So this is our 2002 catalog here. But if you look at the back, there's a very handsome fella on the back there. So that's what Katie wanted to show you.
And what do you got there?
Oh, that's my Shape and Race car. It's like a Pinewood Derby car. So I won first prize. I used a Klingspor branded car. So I was pretty proud of it.
And how old were you?
11, it says.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.